around.
I'm also around.
Yes.
Hello.
How is everyone?
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good.
Can hear you.
Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Mary, can you hear me? Oh, Salihu, can you hear me? Is anyone hearing me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you, man.
Okay, this is Professor Steve calling in from Abuja, Nigeria.
Hi, Steve.
I'm fine, Mary.
How is Abuja?
Abuja is good.
We're also fine in Nairobi.
Oh, that is good. Good to meet you here now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. African Union International Center for Girls and Women Education.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. Hey, Steve. Professor.
Hello, Salihu.
Hello, how are you?
I'm okay.
Nice
And
to
you?
see you. Nice to
Yes,
see
my
you.
pleasure. Yes, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Good morning, colleagues. This is Binyam from ICBA.
Good morning, Nyam. How are you?
Good, Salu.
Oh,
Thank
Bian,
you.
good to see you.
Hello, Prof.
Yes.
How are you?
Steve.
Good to see you as well.
I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine.
Internet connection. We have a problem of internet connection.
Was that Vivian? Who said that?
Hi, Dr. Gertrude.
Gertrude. Okay.
Yes, dear.
How are you? This is Steve.
I'm around, but
How
the
is
internet
Uganda?
is not stable. Uganda is fine. We are
Good.
receiving some bit rain.
I see. Good to see you.
Good to see you. But my internet is not stable. Yes, Chiquito Makova.
Saliu. Saliu.
Hi, he's on the phone with Dr. Muhammad.
Oh,
Shall we
okay.
start now? I think it's now time.
Yeah, I have him on telephone. He said that he'll join later.
Oh, okay. Okay, very
Okay,
good. So I think you can
we're going to
start now.
Yes. Hungry is okay. Jerusalem.
I'm okay.
Yes,
Is Luxi
I'm
there?
Yes.
Yes,
So
I'm
we
here.
start.
Yes, I'm here.
Luxi?
I
So,
think we can start.
Oh, okay.
okay. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, dear partners.
Afternoon.
Before starting, I will ask everybody to switch off their videos, and those who are not speaking are kindly requested to switch off or to mute their microphones for a better hearing. You can use the chat room to write your questions, and those questions will be forwarded to the speakers who can answer them later during the question and answer session. In this meeting, we would like to share information and experiences on use of ICT in distance learning at the tertiary level in Africa. And specifically, we hope to address 3 questions. First question, how have governments prepared or how are they preparing to support tertiary education or tertiary educators to continue delivering quality instruction in an online learning environment? What types of capacity building are being provided to tertiary educators lacking skills for teaching in digital learning platforms? Second question is about tertiary educators working in remote or rural contexts. How are they being supported? How are governments enabling them to continue to deliver education in contexts with low or even without internet connection or without digital technologies? What other innovative models of support are being delivered to teachers to ensure education can continue? And the third question, What support mechanisms have been put in place to ensure educators' well-being in times of crisis requiring social distance? What resources have governments provided to tertiary educators working from home? We believe that the answers to the three questions will certainly offer a range of options in distance learning, as well as allow sharing of existing good practices to move forward. Therefore, it must be recognized that the integration of e-learning in teacher training has become an urgent necessity. So to get started addressing those questions, we have invited four education experts from African countries to share information and experiences on use of ICT in distance learning during this crisis. They are the following. We have Professor Peter von Titanji, Dean of the Faculty of Education, University of Bamenda, Cameroon. We have Dr. Temesgen Melaku, teacher educator in Bahar Dar University, Ethiopia. We have Professor Robert Oboko, Associate Professor for ICT in Education and current Director of the School of Computing and Informatics, University of Nairobi, Kenya. And last but not least, we have Dr. Vivian Nwaocha, Head of Computer Science Department at National Open University of Nigeria. Therefore, this presentation we're going to listen to, before those presentations, we're going to listen to the director of ICBA, Dr. Yumiko Yokozeki, for her welcoming remarks to all participants. And then we will receive an opening remark, as you can see on the program that is displayed on the screen. We'll have an opening speech will be delivered by Dr. Adewale Adesina, Director of Learning Content Management System at National Open University of Nigeria. The closing remarks will be from Dr. Mahama Wedraogo, Director of the Human Resource Science and Technology Department of the African Union Commission. So without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to the Director of ICBA, Dr. Yumiko Yokozeki, for her welcoming remarks. So Yumiko, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Saliu. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Welcome to the webinar on use of ICT in distance learning in higher education institutions in Africa. Globally, countries are implementing drastic measures to slow the spread of COVID-19, including school closures, and that includes universities and colleges. By the end of the second week of April 2020, just last week, UNESCO analysis shows that 192 countries had implemented nationwide closure of educational institutions, and that the pandemic had impacted over 90% of the world's students, learners, and also 63 million teachers. And in fact, in the history of mankind, we have never experienced such a large-scale closure of educational institutions. In Africa, percentage of students impaired by nationwide closure is estimated to be slightly above the global figures. Now, this short-term consequence of school closure is obvious, increasing the social disparity and also vulnerability, and medium to long-term consequence of school closure could include risk of learners dropping out of school, especially girls and the vulnerable groups, risk of violence and attacks in communities and families, and decline in learning achievement at different levels. So far from being synonymous with the holidays, school closure in the middle of academic calendar requires mitigation to ensure continuity of quality education by maintaining regular and high quality of learning between teachers and the interaction between teachers and students. In this regard, each student, whatever their family socioeconomic status is, they must be given opportunity to learn. And UNESCO is promoting hashtag learning never stops, and also hashtag no one should be left behind. It is encouraging to see that the governments and the educators are exploring solutions, quick one and medium one, to ensure the continuity of quality education at all levels of education during this pandemic. And higher education, universities and colleges are the examples for the whole education system. Therefore, today we are going to, therefore, it is very important to know from each other what are the efforts we are making. So this webinar focuses on tertiary education institutions, on the experience in continuing learning and the research in this difficult time. So I would like to welcome you again for this second webinar organized by ICBA for Africa. We are running this webinar every week on Wednesday, so please continue joining. And let us have a fruitful exchange. Thank you very much. Over to you, Salu.
Thank you so very much for that remarks. Now I'm going to give the floor to Dr. Adewale Adesina, Director of Learning Content Management System at National Open University of Nigeria, for the keynote speech. So Dr. Adewale Adesina, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Salio. Welcome to everyone that have connected to this webinar on ICT in distance learning at the tertiary level. I'll be sharing some experiences from the National Open University of Nigeria now. Next slide, please. As of today, the COVID-19 pandemic has claimed an excess of over 177,000 lives globally, and there are 1.5 million people infected with the virus. As we have heard and as we know, most
There's some vibration. There's some vibration while you speak. I don't know what we'll do to hear you clearly.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear, but with some vibration.
Hello, I hope it's better.
Go ahead, yes, it's better.
Okay, thank you. Most governments around the world.
They are still here, but you can go ahead.
Maybe it's your phone.
I'm hearing some background noise, but it doesn't appear to be from here. But is it any better now?
We can only hear it when you're speaking.
Okay, good. Yeah, so most governments around the world have temporarily closed education institutions in an attempt to contain the virus. It was Nelson Mandela that said that no country can really develop unless its citizens are educated. And the way to keep education going today, in spite of social distancing restrictions, is by adopting distance learning mode of delivery. Africa has a population of over 1.3 billion, and there are about 760 universities with 660 million students. Okay, so most of these universities are brick and mortar universities, which offer face-to-face learning. The course content and learning are presented in person, and it's fixed at a people are fixed in a particular location, and interaction is by face-to-face. On the other hand, there is a distance learning approach where teaching and learning comes using computer ICT technologies, and the instruction is independent of time, location, pace, and space. It's called e-learning, virtual learning, and the likes. The beauty of it is that the learner can learn anywhere. They can learn anywhere and interact with lecturers and students everywhere. Now, it is believed that even after the lift of the lockdown measures, most institutions will probably use a blended learning in which there will be a combination of distance learning and online, face-to-face interaction. Next slide, please. Now there are some essential requirements.
Yes, turn off your video. You can turn off your video. Your video. You can switch it off.
Okay.
Maybe it will be better.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. For distance learning to take place, there are essential requirements. For instance, devices. We need to make sure that devices are available for users, learners, and lecturers to use. For instance, mobile phones, tablet, laptops, and desktops. The good thing in Africa is that a lot of learners, most learners have mobile phones. And then there is the important factor, the internet connectivity. A modem or Wi-Fi broadband connection is needed in order to be able to deliver instruction using online learning. Presently, internet penetration in Africa is possibly around 40%, and it's growing. Then there is the important factor of digital literacy. People need to be able to use computers, know the works of computer basics, word processing, use of internet, digital citizenship. All these are important in order to deliver effective teaching and learning using distant learning techniques. And then, importantly, there should be a platform on which the delivery takes place. Now, this platform can be a learning management system where there will be two-way interaction between the tutor and the learner, and the content is being assessed together, and interactive content is created, shared, and collaborative projects are done. So this is done using a platform, and it can also be extended to use of TVs and radio for communication. Next slide. Now, for there to be a good success in a distance learning project, a very, very essential component is the support services for the tutors and the learners. There are several support mechanisms that should be in place. Otherwise, the platform is there, the need for learning is there, but students are not being engaged. The most important being the technology support. Access to data and devices, very important. Also to support users in the use of any technology, be it the radio, be it TV, to check users when they log in, and to resolve technical challenges and to guide on the general use of technology. And then there is the one-on-one advising. The distant learner is usually alone. Most of the learning is done privately. And so there is need to have somebody to look for to get access to counselors, help in identifying resources, human and material, that is helpful, and also to solve instructional and psychological problems. Also important is the administrative support given, for instance, orientation of learners to the learning environment, sorting issues of registration, and also effective communication protocols need to be put in place for the students. And where possible, centers close to the student will also help in advancing the teaching and learning exercise. And then there is the academic support. There's a two-way interaction between, with effective feedback between the learner and the teacher, and also monitoring the learner's progress as learning goes on. And so all these are important in order to get the distance learning system working in tertiary level. Next slide, please. I'll speak briefly about open and distance learning in Nigeria. And Nigeria has over 172 tertiary institutions currently serving over 4 million students. And
you have 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes, huh?
Okay.
2 minutes.
Okay, presently, there are 30 universities that have sought for ODL licenses in Nigeria to be able to deliver open and distance learning education. And also, in the National Open University of Nigeria, there is the Center for Excellence in Technology Enhanced Learning that helps in order to help the delivery of distance learning in Nigeria. What we have discovered is that learners are willing to learn. There are learners who want to use distance learning. They have mobile phones, some have internet, and lecturers have positive attitude in the learning process. Next slide, please. And so what is important is to have a wide range of interactions in the learning process. Right now, schools are closed, but in the National Open University, for instance, there is still video conferencing session going on between learners and teachers, online chats, student interactions. All these sessions are recorded and made available for people to access even after the sessions. And then social media integration is also being used in order to enhance learning at this time. Next slide, please. And so the government also has several interventions. For instance, the Ministry of Education has a task force that is helping tertiary institutions to go online. And then also the federal government has tasked the national TV and radio stations to be able to help.
You have 1 more minute. Thank you. One more minute, please. Thanks.
Yeah. So tertiary institutions are able to be able to use TV and radio in delivering knowledge. In the National Open University of Nigeria, one way we cope with the pandemic is lecturers and facilitators are given some stipends for data devices and backup. And there are interactive content development also for content to be made offline and sent to students. Next slide, please. There are brief recommendations to keep distance learning going. We should consider using open education resources, consider more training of teachers even at this time, and attention should be given to quality in the delivery process. And importantly, it is, as we do, we take cybersecurity seriously because going online exposes a lot. So basically, it is important that we take a positive approach as we progress in delivering learning via distance learning. There is a saying by Wayne Dyer that the change we look for, we should change the things we look at, and then the things we see will change. Let's look at delivering distance learning positively, and definitely we will be able to implement it even in these difficult times. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Adesina, for that opening speech. Okay. Now we're going to give the floor to Professor Peter von Titanji. I don't know if he's around. He's the Dean of the Faculty of Education, University of Bamenda. Professor Titanji, are you around? So while waiting for him to be positioned, we give the floor to Dr. Temesgen Melaku, teacher, educator in Bahar Dar University of Ethiopia. Dr. Temesgen?
Yes, thank you.
You have the floor.
I would like to say welcome to this webinar. My point of presentation focus on the response the government is making to address the current situation, especially the face-to-face tertiary program is now changed into distance because of COVID. So how is the government trying to address this reality by using ICT is my focus of presentation. I'm not dealing with the other regularly offered distance programs in Ethiopia. So currently the face-to-face program is already closed and students are supposed to attend courses being at home. Teachers are supposed to provide courses being at home. So things are changed from face-to-face to distance. Then how can ICT be used to support this current reality? So my points are what the government is trying to do currently to provide the regular programs of tertiary education using ICT or using the ICT technology. So what is being done so far, to my knowledge, is, as you know, the government was busy addressing the preventive measures, and it's very recently that Ministry of Education is taking actions to use ICT to support the interrupted teaching and learning process. And to address this problem, the government has established a task force, and the task force at the Ministry of Education or Ministry of Science and Higher Education has organized a task force. This task force is expected to do at least 5 important functions. The first one is to set a platform, an online platform, where all students in the tertiary education can have access to the teaching learning resources, like the course materials, the lectures, the assignments, and so that they can be supported to finish the courses being at home. So setting a platform is one thing the task force is supposed to do. The other one is, together with setting the platform, it needs training the teachers because it is a new experience. Teachers are expected to develop their courses to deliver the courses using this ICT technology. Therefore, capacity development for tertiary educators is another task the task force is supposed to do. Under the capacity development, the teachers are expected to be trained on how to develop their courses, fitting the selected platform, and the kind of learning approach we need to follow should be different from what we had in the face-to-face session. So it may be activity-based or task-based, or some courses may be entirely distance mode. So deciding which course should be offered in which mode is one thing to be done, and the teachers are expected to prepare their courses accordingly. And this has to be also supported. Training must be given on how to use the selected platform, the technical aspect of using the online platform is another training area to be done. Because students and teachers are not in a face-to-face situation, there must be user manuals to help teachers use the IT platform, to help students use IT platform properly. So video-based user manuals are to be prepared so that teachers and students can use the platform properly by consulting this video manual. And the ICT support team must be there. As you know, teachers, when they are using this new technology, they need to be supported frequently, and students also need the support. So support team must be organized, and they should be equipped with the necessary skills of supporting teachers and students. Another issue the task force is trying to deal with is the cost of internet. Access to internet is a critical problem, and even students and teachers do not have sufficient access if they are at home. Access may not be that a problem when it comes to university campuses, but when teachers are staying at home and students are in their home, then internet access is another important challenge. And the task force is trying to find out solutions how teachers and students get access to internet. So it needs to deal with the telecom to make the website be accessed without charge. So they are dealing with telecom to make it free. Providing gadgets like smartphone, tablets, and laptop is still another issue the task force is trying to do. Because although some students do have smartphones, there could be significant number of students who have no this facility. So how can students get these smartphones? And I think the program is an issue being treated. And then these all activities require financing. So there is also a team working on searching for support to finance all these activities. So at the government level, especially in response to the current reality, this task force is working in these areas. The second question of discussion is how can educators in the remote area be supported? This, of course, is a very challenging one to the reality we have.
Hi, Doctor. Sorry to interrupt. You have 3 minutes left. Thank you.
So support, how can educators working in the remote area support the teaching learning process? How can they continue delivering without internet, digital technology? This is a very big challenge we may face. The possible options I can imagine will be to use a print modules supported by telephone communications, using social media platforms. And even this requires students to be free in the internet cost, internet charges, free charge. And this may also be supported by the radio broadcasting and television broadcasting facilities available in different regions of the country. So broadcasting lessons, providing tutorials using radio and television will be an option in this case. Innovative models, this is a little bit challenging to me, and I will not deal with it. Ensuring the well-being of educators. Already teachers and students are made to stay at home. That is one measure. But still, there must be support. I think there is a noise coming. So support mechanisms may be provided by organizing a team which can provide pedagogical and technical support online for teachers providing courses through the new platform, and establishing virtual practitioners community so that they can discuss their challenges and share solutions they may encounter in the process of delivering the course. And resources need to be provided for.
You have 1 minute left. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So access to internet still is a problem and has to be addressed. And there must be a way of providing access to both teachers and students free of charge. And laptops, tablets are still things to be provided as support for the teachers. The last point I have is the experience in our university, Bahar Dar University. The next slide, please. In Bahar Dar University, currently we are providing 15 professional courses using Moodle platform. And this is a platform which was primarily designed for a face-to-face based, although it is blended one. and it needs to modify the lessons in a way to address the distance reality we have. So distance mode of changing the course into distance mode may be necessary, but it's only few courses that we have. Scaling up this practice is important, and all the courses provided must be changed into online form. I think we have the experience, and we can use the experience to scale up the practice. So the Moodle platform is one platform we are using. The other is social media. We use internet, emails, telegrams, and messengers for different purposes. Course materials can be delivered, thesis advising through email exchanges, and so on are used. For some courses, print modules are used, and there is a video conference.
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, could you please wrap up? Thank you.
Yeah, so generally, I think there are a lot of things we need to do in terms of changing the courses, in terms of developing the competence, the skills of teachers and students, in terms of providing materials that facilitate this interaction between teachers and students, and providing technical support, and financing all these activities also is necessary, and that is the reality we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Temesgen Melaku, for those very informative elements you have brought to our direction. Now we're going to give the floor to Mr. Robert Oboko, Associate Professor of ICT in Education in the University of Nairobi. Dr. Robert, if you are around, you have the floor. Professor Robert.
Thank you very much. Let me also say welcome to all the participants to this presentation. Yeah, so I work at the University of Nairobi at the School of Computing and Informatics, and I'm going to share with you our experience so far during this COVID-induced school closure. So next slide, please. Yeah, so the presentation will cover a bit of background on learning using technologies and distance learning in Kenya, both paper-based and technology-based, ICT-based, then status of distance learning before COVID. So the background, we'll talk about, orientation of students and staff. Then I'll look at university response. And then, so what have the universities tried to do? Then capacity building. Okay, so this one, the next one will be about government support, and then some of the challenges and opportunities. So next slide. Yeah, so in Kenya, we have a long-standing tradition of distance learning. Some of our universities, like University of Nairobi, for training teachers, Strathmore University for training accountants, and Mount Kenya University, which came recently but adopted paper-based learning, they have all been practicing distance learning for some time. And since the years in the 2000s, also universities have made intentional efforts to adopt use of ICTs for learning in various modes, mostly blended learning, for on-campus and distance. And so most of the universities in Kenya, I can say, have ODEL units, open distance and e-learning units. And some of those that I know well include University of Nairobi, Maseno University, Moi University, Jomo Kenyatta University, DESTA, and the United States International University. The last two are private universities. The others are public. In Kenya, we have about 74 universities, public private, public constituent, private constituent colleges, and those with the letters, and still going on with the process of becoming full universities, but offering degrees. So we also have in Kenya a non-profit body called Kenya Education Network that provides support services to teaching, especially engineering and the sciences across all the universities. And they did a study in November 2019 about learners' preference for learning, mode of preference for learning. So this includes face-to-face, we're blended. That means with technology and face-to-face, as well as pure online learning. And they found out that 57% of the learners in our universities prefer learning, prefer the blended learning mode, while 3.3% prefer pure online learning. So you can say that about 60% of the learners are amenable to learning using technologies. And then also, a recent development also is use of paper-based and in some cases ICT-based learning for students who learn on their own for 3 months, and during the 4th month, which we would normally call school holidays, they come to university for 3 to 4 weeks of face-to-face learning. So that has also been a recent development in the use of distance learning. And some universities like Kenyatta University gave students tablets for use, so they could load content there and they could learn. Others still used paper-based approach. And then for 3 months, the students could learn on their own, and then they come on to the university face-to-face. So that is also another indication of orientation towards distance learning in Kenyan universities. Next slide.
Hi, Professor. You have 3 minutes left. Thank you.
All right, no problem. So in terms of the status of distance learning before COVID, so we have universities with ordained universities with some course units and as well as programs, but mostly available in electronic form for on-campus students. And some universities like Nairobi, Maseno, Amref University have been even able to offer trainings across the Kenyan borders. And then some universities have also adopted the bring your own device policy, so that new students who are coming in are asked to come in with laptops, be they on campus or distance students, because we have students, we have 4 modules, those who are full-time, those who come in the evening, those who learn online, and those who learn, school-based, that is 3 months, and then they come on the university. So in terms of availability of blended learning materials, students prefer blended learning, but there are very few courses available in the universities which can be offered through this blended learning mode. So in that survey, 38% of the students said they are not taking a blended learning course, while 40% said there are few. So it means that up to about 80% of the students are not very comfortable with what's on offer. So yet, 36% of the students said they're taking online courses from either the university or other sources like the commonly available MOOCs. So next slide, please.
Professor, could you please wrap up in 1 minute? Thank you very much.
Yes, so the universities have responded by training faculties on how to teach online, and they have enlisted students to learn. They are using tools such as Big Blue Button and Google Meet, mostly using synchronous learning. Next slide. So the government has entered into an agreement with Google Loon to allow balloons to be used, especially in rural areas, to facilitate access to, those students who are there and other teachers to access 4G connection. So this has enabled them to access the internet during this period. Next slide. So we have a few challenges even with this approach. because we still have large classes and are not easy to manage with the technology, so during synchronous sessions. Then learners in rural areas still are not able to have access to internet. And also some learners have challenges because we are telling them to learn, but the psychosocial climate is not very favorable because nobody knows what is going to happen with this corona problem. And so there are challenges. We also have challenges on how to administer exams and how to teach practicals like in medicine and engineering online. However, we can conclude by saying that many faculty members now have seen the opportunity and they now believe that it's easy to teach with technologies. Students are also accepting this as an alternative mode. And I think it gives flexibility to both learners and students because sometimes we have members of faculty who are traveling on research trips, and it makes them more available to their teaching. So maybe I can stop there and say thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Robert Oboko, for that information regarding the background of distance education, the challenges and the opportunities. We will come back to that during the question and answers. Now I'm going to give the floor to Dr. Vivian Nwaucha, Head of Computer Science Department at National Open University. Dr. Vivian, are you ready?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Hello, everyone.
There's a background noise. Stop your video.
Excuse me, those people who are not presenting, please switch off microphone and the video. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, so you're welcome to this session of the presentation. We're looking at ICT and distance learning in tertiary education institutions during the school closure. We're going to be focusing on the noun strategy and what has been happening in Nigeria. How have we been coping? Sorry, that's not the presentation. Can you put the presentation? This is UNESCO.
This is Henok, this is Cameroon.
ICT and distance learning from now. Noun strategy and other responses.
Okay, he's coming.
All right, so we're going to just focus on noun strategy and the other responses that the government has tried to implement. Now, the COVID-19, that is the coronavirus disease, has actually kept everybody on lockdown, and that has been the trending word. So it's a global matter. Next slide, please. Essentially, Nigeria has not been left out because our own case has also been rising. The next slide, please. Now, it's important that we understand the Nigerian context because we're a populous country, the 7th most populous country with an estimated population of 200 million, 164 universities precisely, although there are other tertiary institutions. And that gives us less than 2 million enrollments of students. Now, the COVID-19 has actually shut everyone out, except for those who have the facilities currently. Now, at the National Open University of Nigeria, commonly referred to as NOW, we're very fortunate, being the foremost open and distance learning institution, we have the mandate of providing highly accessible, cost-effective, and flexible education. Now, we've always been striving to provide learning at the doorstep of everyone, anywhere and anytime. We have the opportunity, and we are fortunate to have our study centers spread across the nation. We have currently over 500,000 students enrolled. Now, NOW's inclusive policy has also led to a 100% waiver for inmates. So currently, we have all our inmates studying free. We also have scholarships for young girls who otherwise in rural communities would not have had the opportunities to study due to cultural barriers. Next slide. Now the focus will be on how NOUN has been striving and how we are still on in spite of the lockdown. So leveraging on the current affordances of technology, NOUN still offers its classes online through video conferencing sessions that has been going on even before the lockdown, and it's still on now. Constant discussion forums, chat sessions with students, continuous assessments via computer-based tests, because our students are currently being assessed and it's continuous. Then we also have a project administration system. So our students are currently also being supervised. Next slide. We equally offer massive open online courses in collaboration with UNESCO. Our open educational resources are available, and currently all our courseware is free. A number of universities are actually using our courseware. Now we also we have a Center of Excellence, Africa Center of Excellence on Technology Enhanced Learning, commonly called ASTEL. This center has really been very effective, because currently, even during the lockdown, we've conducted training. There's been training, capacity building, and there are currently several courses being prepared, online courses being prepared for new programs. Next slide.
Hi, Doctor. You have 3 minutes left.
Okay, what are the responses? The federal government has a coordinated task force that has ensured that Unity schools, the public schools, have the virtual learning platform through which they can continue their learning. This is it's just starting. And then the broadcast of subjects via national television and radio stations. Some other ministries are offering free training. Next slide. All right, the state governments also offering some training, and there are some state governments that have very meaningful approach, like in Bauchi State, where the minister has actually decided to upscale this, because we have young girls who do not have any means of learning, and they have the curriculum on their phones, so they're trying to upscale it. There are other private organizations that also offer free training. Next slide. So now has a number of potentials, and this can be extended to Nigeria, the entire country, and beyond. The expertise and the pool of resources can actually be upscaled to support teachers and learners and lecturers. And also parents, I didn't include it, but because parents are currently going to be the ones facilitating and helping their works, for the the primary school and secondary school. But there's need for support by the federal government, because this will not happen. But with NOUN alone cannot do this. Next slide.
Could you please wrap up in 1 minute?
Okay, so there are lots of prospects. NOUN can actually digitize the courses for public and primary schools and tertiary institutions, train teachers in primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions, also train parents, digitize and integrate assessment in the current platform that we have for students. Next slide. Of course, the challenges are obvious: power supply, unstable power supply, limited access to the internet, inadequate provisions of learning devices, and unskilled learners. Next slide. Finally, we need to take a critical look at taking care of those challenges so that some of those resources that we have can be upscaled, like exploring alternative sources of power supply, commitment on the part of the government to fully support open and distance electronic learning as a viable alternative, because currently that seems to be the future. establishment of firmer partnership with all the internet service providers and phone companies so that internet access and phones and learning devices can be provided for those who cannot afford it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vivian, for that presentation. Okay, I think Professor Peter Fontitanji is with us now. Is that so? Professor Titanji? Because we had some problems. It seems he's not. Professor Titanji? No, he's not around. So,
Excuse me, Saliu. Excuse me, Saliu.
Yes.
Yeah, is the chat box, is it working? I am trying to display something, but it's not. I don't know if it's the same for everyone.
Yeah,
Maybe
it is
Henok
working.
could check. It is working. Okay.
We can receive some messages. It works, yeah.
Okay, so it's only mine then.
Maybe
Okay, that's fine.
minimize.
Okay.
Maybe minimize the video or the presentation and click to the chat.
Okay, I tried several times.
display,
Anyways, I'll try. Don't worry. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe Professor Tichandi will join us during the question and answers session. Now we're going to tackle the session allocated to the questions and answers. And I would request those who are on video to switch them off so that we have a better hearing. And those who are not speaking, once again, are requested to mute their microphone, please. So I'm going to give the floor to our colleague Jerusalem, who is the chat moderator, to share with us some questions or concerns. Jerusalem.
Oh. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all presenters. Dr. Tamasken from Ethiopia, Professor Robert from Kenya, and Dr. Vivian from Nigeria. Can you hear me? Yes. You hear
audio
me?
Hello.
We can hear you.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I have received so many questions through the text message. So before I leave the floor for speakers, let us give priority for those who already sent their questions through the text, and I will read the question based on the presentation. So, hello. So I will read the questions according to the country presentation, but there are also some questions which are forwarded for all the three countries. So maybe for presenters, I might need your attention when I read the questions which is for three of you, and then I will go to the question which is forwarded to Ethiopia, and then to Kenya and Nigeria, and we all have 25 minutes, so I will give 8 minutes for the presenters after I read the questions to respond, and if we have time, we will go to the second round. So the first question is, the first question it reads like this: if we assume that not all students are getting the laptops or access to internet, how will we validate the teaching and learning, including assessment processes taking place in the school during the closure? So the first question is related to the assessment and how are we going to assess the teaching and the learning, and it goes to both for Ethiopia and Kenya presenters. And the second question seems that the experience that are shared by both countries seems that a general one, and it's a response for the regular program. So in a time of emergency situations like COVID, what do you advise for the countries who have not yet started the distance education, and what transitional solutions you propose? And this is a question for Kenya and Ethiopia both. And Dr. Tamaskan, there are also another question for specific to Ethiopia case. And the first question is from Dr. Yumiko Ekozaki, and she really appreciates the presentation, and she likes to know that if there is any chance that the Ethio Telecom can provide or reduce the free internet access for educators and students, and also if you have any data or percentage of students who have ICT access through PC or smartphone. And the second question is also from Sandia, and she is asking your opinion on the face-to-face interaction. Do you believe that the face-to-face interaction via Team, Google Meet, or Zoom is important component for distance learning? And this is a question for you, Dr. Tamaskan. Please, once you respond to the question, we'll go to Kenya, and you have 6 minutes, and Roxy will follow. Hello?
Am I supposed to respond now? Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Please go ahead, yes.
Yeah, I think I will ask you to remind me the second question later. With regard to validating the assessment in the absence of good internet connection and necessary learning devices, this will be a big challenge, but it has to be organized in a way both the teaching, learning, and the assessment has to go together. The course design, which I believe should give students to learn and at the same time assess. For example, if it is activity-based or task-based, that kind of learning can serve both purposes. Can be used to assess students' progress.
Can you please? Sorry. Can you please mute your microphones? Video service.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
May I continue?
Yes, go ahead.
So validation is a problem, but we need to, integrate the teaching learning with the assessment, as I said, by choosing the appropriate methodology. Otherwise, it's very difficult to ensure the validity, as has been indicated by the person who raised the question. So what I believe is, for example, students may be given a task to do on an issue, and they will be given feedback to improve their performance. And based on the final performance they have, the teachers may assess based on their performance. So task-based, activity-based kind of approach may help to do both the teaching, learning, and the assessment. And in that way, students can be assessed without attending exams as usual. With regard to the
maybe something is wrong. Say recording has started.
I think people keep opening their microphone.
May I continue? Okay. Hello?
Yes, Tamaskan, we can hear you.
Okay. Cost of internet is an issue that still is a proposal from task force to deal with Ethio Telecom. It's not still fixed, but it's a plan to ask for this kind of reduction the team believes that the telecom will make some reduction for specific websites to be visited by students for the purpose of this education. That is there in the plan. It's not yet fixed. Face-to-face interaction is another question. Well, as far as the technology supports, teachers can arrange this kind of meeting with students. And even today, Ministry of Education was training all teachers in the higher education institutions how to use this kind of platform so that they can use for the delivery of the courses. But still, the connectivity is a challenge. When the number of students and participants are increasing, the internet connection will be congested and that will affect, but still there is a plan to make this kind of conferencing between students and teachers to help them address this face-to-face kind of interaction. Sorry, what was the second question raised? I tried to respond for the first and the third one. Jairus? Hello?
Jerus?
Sorry,
Hello,
I'm
Jerus.
on mute. Sorry. Yes, I was on mute. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
I want to remind me the
yes,
second
the
one. I
question
tried to
is
respond for the first and the third one.
sure. And the other question is what percentage of students have access to IT equipments like PC or smartphone? And if there is any chance to work with Ethio Telecom to provide reduced fee, free internet access for students and
That I
educators?
try to respond with reduction of the cost is still
Yes.
being under discussion. But
Yeah.
the facilities students and teachers have is an issue still to be addressed by the workforce. Most students do have the smartphone, but I'm not sure statistically.
English.
There is a way. It's also an issue that the team has to work on to make it available for students. Maybe so.
Okay. And maybe the last question is, hello?
Yeah, there is a noise at the back.
Yes. So the
Okay.
other options, it's about your view on the other options like Google or via Team or Zoom to have a successful distance learning, and what's your opinion on that?
Yeah. As far as it helps, I think it can be used by the universities. It needs to train teachers how to use it because most of the teachers do not have this kind of experience. Even the platform we have at the institution level is used by only limited number of teachers. It requires teachers to expose to these kind of facilities. So as long as it helps us, it can be used. Thank you. Thank you. I have finished, I think.
Yes. And thank you, Dr. Tamaskan. And the second question will go to Kenya. Maybe I will repeat the first two questions. And the first one was how to ensure assessment process in the closure of the schools. And the second one is what do you recommend for those who have not yet started the distance education? And there are also two specific questions for Kenya. And this one is actually related to the first one, but it says, how can we ensure the quality of distance learning in this situation? And yes, the second one goes to how can we ensure students are learning during the closure, and are they provided in any material, especially in the case of private universities? So the two specific questions are related to ensuring the quality of distance learning and also making sure that those who are private universities are also engaging their students and materials are also provided for private university students.
Can first of all say that yes?
Yes, you can proceed.
Yeah, so there is a question about whether we are able to reach all the students and whether they are able to access materials and how we are doing, like validation, maybe through assessment. I have to say that for us, well, what we have done is that we are engaging the students in synchronous learning sessions. And that has happened because, like in our university, it has been possible to enter into an agreement with the it has been possible to enter into an agreement with one of the major ISPs called Telecom Kenya to reach both urban and rural areas. And so we have enlisted both members of faculty and students, and the students are able to access SIM cards even in rural areas through Telecom Kenya, so that the university is able to pay for bundles which they are able to access to enable them to be in class. And of course, we also record the sessions we are having, which we have, the synchronous sessions, and we share them by email to all the students. And that is over and above providing, let's say, the class materials in electronic form, whether they are in MS Word or PowerPoint or whichever other form. So that way, we are trying to ensure that we reach all the students and all the students have the opportunity to learn. In terms of validation, that's one of the challenges we have. We have not yet reached that stage where we are examining them, but definitely is one of the things we are thinking of how to deal with. I know some of my colleagues, people I work with in research, who have developed ways of examining electronically, like by generating auto-generating questions, like in statistics, which which can be marked. I also know a colleague of mine who has a way of giving assignments electronically in mathematics and marking them. So, but we are still exploring. We have not yet found a way to deal with it. Yes. Is there another one I've left out? Is there another question I've left out? To the moderator, have I left out any question?
Sorry, I forgot to put my cell phone. Yes, I think all the questions are addressed. And
Yes.
now we move to Nigeria. So we have also the question of assessment. How can we conduct assessment in the school closure? It's a general question for 3 of the countries. And there are also 3 questions here for Nigeria. And one of the question is a kind of recommendation that the implementation seems more on a kind of implementation that we conduct in a normal times. And the question is, are there the higher education institutions prepared in terms of capacity building, both technical, pedagogical, and innovative, to deal with this specific pandemic, which is COVID-19? And what are the challenges of the students living in the area where there is no internet connectivity, and how the challenge of these students are looked at in the higher education institutions? And there are also questions like, are universities charging the same amount of fee now that the students are at home? And if there is any fee which is also goes to the students in the time of closure? And there is also a question, and this question comes now, but it's also a question for my team. Can we have the cost of distance learning? Can we estimate the cost of distance learning as a question?
Okay, I can start to answer for some of the questions in Nigeria, and my colleague Vivian will also respond to some of it. Okay. So regarding assessment, assessments are being carried out at the moment online. So what lecturers do is they post what we call tutor marked assessments on the learning portal, and students access it from their homes. And a number of those questions are multiple choice questions, MCQs, but there are also questions, project work that students submit as well. And so they are accessed and feedback given to the students immediately, and sometimes later on when it is marked. However, high-stake assessment like end of term assessment is usually done face-to-face. It's a requirement of the regulatory bodies here in Nigeria that exams should be done face-to-face. So they come to different centers and do the exams. So it's one of the challenges we are trying to solve at the moment. If the lockdown extends beyond the period into examination time, we have to look at a way to deal with that. And currently a team is working on how to handle that. So, but the continuous assessments are being handled at the moment online. In terms of capacity building, in Nigeria, we, especially in the National Open University of Nigeria, we are fortunate to have a Commonwealth of Learning supported capacity building directorate called Retreadal. And actually they service the whole West Africa. So they do a lot of trainings for lecturers within the Open University and other universities across Nigeria and beyond in administering distance learning solutions. So that's also helping. And then the Center for Excellence on Technology Enhanced Learning helps as well in conducting trainings to especially technologists in the last few weeks on how to create interactive content that can be available to students offline without the use of internet connection. So that's being done to assist them. Regarding costs, I don't believe I got the third and fourth questions clearly because there was interference in the communication. But the question about the cost of distance learning, cost effectiveness, yeah. I think for distance learning, the initial cost of setting up the infrastructure is usually very high, but in the long run, it is perceived, to be cost effective, both to the student side and also the learner side. In the case of National Open University, we have the advantage of numbers. So enrollment can get up to 500,000 at times. So when fees are aggregated, everybody pays. Fees are based on what the student can carry. For instance, if a student can only do 3 courses within a semester, he pays only for that based on the financial capability. And when the fees are aggregated, it becomes substantial and it helps. And going forward, in the National Open University, especially with the emergence of the Center for Excellence in Technology Enhanced Learning, we're looking for models to make both the internet and devices available to students. We're working on models to make internet connectivity available to students in a cost-effective way, because the volume can help drive the cost down. So with support from government and also the large number of students, we believe devices can be procured at very affordable rates, and also internet connectivity can be improved. So those are measures that help to drive down the cost in some instances, but much support is needed from government, and public-private partnerships are also encouraged. I believe my colleague, Vivian, would like to comment on some of the questions as well.
Yeah, Dr. Vivian, maybe make it a bit short so that we don't run out of time.
Yes. All right, so thank you, Dr. Wale, for the contribution. I'll take it from the perspective, because he has focused on what can be done and what is being done in now, but I'll look at the perspective of those who do not have the digital divide, the ones that are left out in all this. What can be done? For example, for assessment, the short-term goal could be to use multimedia, so that even those who have, because everybody, at least studies have shown that 99% of the population have a mobile phone, even if it's not a smartphone. So they can actually be accessed through the multimedia means. But first of all, there has to be a means of digitizing all the contents of the schools. So that's one way out, rather than waiting for the long-term solution. But of course, there still needs to go beyond the multimedia means of assessment. And also, there could also be, apart from the final assessment, task-based assessment, where students will need to do things and send the response also through the text message. So that's one way out. Then regarding the costs of learning, my colleague had actually addressed it. However, I was thinking that it's important that those that are not in National Open University, the government seriously considers how to, especially during this period of the...
Doctor, could you please make it short, within 1 minute? Thank you very much.
All right. Anyway, essentially, there's a need to bridge the divide, because a number of people are not able to continue education if there's no support. So there's real need for, apart from all the ideas, there's need for support. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, all presenters, for the question and answer. But there are 2 or 3 striking questions, and I'm sorry, colleagues, I couldn't satisfy all of you, but I think in one or another way, your questions are addressed. I can see that there are similarities of questions, but just as a general feedback and question, there are some reflections also from participants on the encouraging on the lessons from Nigeria, or that the university is providing stipends for communication to the students. And also there are colleagues who are asking to share some experiences, practical oriented courses, online courses. So maybe this platform will continue so that we can share that practical courses and any other experiences through this platform. But there are 2 questions that we really need to think of, and these are the question that somebody is asking, that now today we are being challenged by this media, by this ICT conversation that we are having. For example, the noise can be mentioned. So how can we ensure that quality lessons are transferred through the media? And also the second question is, this is for all of you, maybe also those who are on the floor, on the participating part can respond. The second question is, the COVID crisis really showed us how our higher education is prepared for this kind of emergencies. So what kind of crisis management initiative can we learn and take as an opportunity and to reform the higher education in Africa is the other question. And maybe I will give priority for the presenters to say something, and over to Salu then.
Yes, that's 5 minutes. You can take 5 more minutes for them to answer.
Thank you.
While waiting for Dr. Mahama. Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. They can take 5 more minutes to answer those questions, those critical questions, while waiting for Dr. Mahama for his closing remarks. He'll be joining us soon.
Okay. So one of the presenters can address the question: how can we use this opportunity to reform the higher education in our higher education institutions, and also how can we make sure that we provide quality ICT or distance learning for our learners, considering the fact that we are being challenged by this ICT use. So maybe Dr. Vivian or Dr. Tamaskin, or from Kenya, Professor Robert, you can, if you have something to say.
On the first one, quality lesson issue. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Quality lesson in a kind of technology with a number of limitations as we are facing here. Of course, it's a challenge, but I think the discussion that we have today is to address the realities we are facing. So definitely there will be ups and downs, and definitely there will be sort of compromise in relation to quality. So we need to take that into account. There could be some issues of quality while we are working on a new kind of system with things which we have not been practiced. So that has to be taken into account, but we need to have ways to improve by organizing support teams, technical support teams, pedagogical support teams may be organized to back up and support teachers when they are facing this kind of problem. And options, for example, if the videos are not working, text-based activities may be given for students. These kind of additional measures may be taken to improve, but still, I'm afraid maintaining high quality in this kind of situation is still a challenge we have to go through. We cannot skip. That is what I will say. Thank you.
Maybe I can also add something small. This is Robert from Boko.
Thank you,
Yes.
Professor Robert. Yes.
Yes. So I want to say that, of course, it's challenging, especially when you have many participants. Like if you are using such a platform for teaching, because first of all, it's very difficult to get like students be able to be controlled to mute their mics and all that, because sometimes they want to speak at the same time. But it is possible to also insist that students can send their questions by chat, and you can respond to them. But there are also other tools which are a bit, which give the convener a bit more control, like I think big blue button, like WebEx, where participants have a way of raising their hand or indicating that they want to talk. Then they can be, specific speakers can be granted the permission to talk, and that they also allow unmuting those who are those who are not talking. And so I think, and plus also the technical support my colleague was talking about, so as to make sure that we have continuous availability. But I think there are tools which give a bit more control, and one can be able to manage maybe the students better. But also the guidelines in these classes, you set the guidelines very clear right from the start, and then also do a practice session before you get into the actual lesson you are teaching. Maybe it can assist, I think.
Thank you, Yerus. Yerus.
Yes, thank you
I
very
think
much.
I think we are running
we
out
can,
of the time.
yes.
Okay, thank you,
And
Hussein.
now,
I think I'm done, and there are some
Thank
questions,
you.
but I think we can chat later on also, and since the forum is open, but I will hand over to Salu. Thank you very much.
thank you very much, Yerus, and thank you for all the presenters. The questions which we could not deal with because of time could be found in the report that will be sent to all participants, and all the presentation will be shared also with the participants. There is also a recording that we can share later. But now comes the time to give the floor to Dr. Mahama, who is the Director of the Department of Human Resource, Technology and Science of the African Union. So Dr. Mahama, you have the floor. Dr. Mahama. Hello? Dr. Mahama. Yes. Doctor, I can hear you, but not on the phone, not on the panel. Can you take the floor? Not yet. Did you unmute your microphone? No, unfortunately no. Are you in the right panel? Hello? No, not from the panel. Hello, yes? Yeah, from the phone, not from the panel. Go ahead, I see. No, it cannot go, it cannot pass. We have problems of connection, maybe. It doesn't work.
Excuse me, Salim.
So, yes.
Can we, if you can connect with him on the phone, he can make the speech on the phone, and you can, yeah, you can put it in the mic, probably.
That's what I'm trying to do with him. Hello?
Hello?
I'm trying to put you at the mic, but it cannot work.
Yeah, good. I don't speak English.
That?
But I wanted to learn.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Yes, you can go ahead, doctor.
I can go ahead.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Can you hear him?
Well,
let me ask participants if they can hear you. Binyam, can you hear him?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, go
Yes,
ahead.
yes, Ali, we're hearing him.
Hi, Salil. Hello. Hello, Salute. Can you
Yes,
hear me?
Lucy?
Excuse me. Yes, I think we are a bit, our time is up. So, can we have maybe 2-3 more minutes for Dr. Muhammad if Dr. can
No,
be
he's speaking.
connected?
Lucy, he's speaking now. He's speaking.
Yeah, but oh, okay, okay. But I cannot hear.
But the others can hear him.
Okay, okay. Sorry.
Doctor, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
I can't hear him.
Hello?
Sally, we can't hear him. Who is hearing him?
Hello?
No.
Nobody is.
You can't hear him.
No one is hearing him.
Now
He's
we
not
can
on
hear
the
him.
line.
Can you?
Sunday,
Yes.
we can't hear him. He's not on the line.
No.
We can.
Well, it's impossible to hear.
Okay. Okay, no problem. So, Doctor, but people don't seem to be hearing you. I'm sorry for that. So I'll just thank you for.
Someone can read his speech.
Yes. I'm trying to see his speech. Okay, let me read the speech out loud, okay? You can hear me now. You can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Dr. Muhammad Petraogo.
Yes,
Good morning, all. Ladies and gentlemen, country representatives, dear participants, dear colleagues. First of all, let me thank the UNESCO International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa for this invitation. We especially thank Mrs. Director, Dr. Yumiko Yokozeki and her team. Today, we are in a very unprecedented situation, a situation that no one likes. We are in a context marked by the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, from which no one is paid. All societies, all cultures, and quite simply, all humanity is affected. There are currently over 3.5 billion people in confinement, about half the world's population. Ladies and gentlemen, without any doubts, we are living in one of the most difficult moments of our time and a unique moment in the history of humanity. We have built large planes, smartphones, we have conquered the moon, we have conquered space, and even the sea is no longer a mystery to us. But current events show us that we still have a lot to learn. Ladies and gentlemen, UNESCO currently estimates, and the numbers are increasing every day, that 1.5 billion or more than 91.5% of all students in the world are affected by school closure. Additionally, more than 63 million teachers are affected. In Africa, percentage of students impacted by school closure is estimated to be slightly above the global figure. The picture is unattractive, very unattractive even, because suddenly millions of our students and teachers have been denied access to schools, colleges, universities, and other traditional learning places we know. These are learning places that for more than a century have been benchmark in teaching and learning. Indeed, today, history has decided otherwise. We now have new normal unheard of or thought about just a few weeks ago. Suddenly, our teachers and students in Africa at all levels have found themselves in situations of school closures for indefinite periods. The immediate effects is an inequality of opportunity to access quality education, and which would be of great harm to all African countries. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just listened carefully to the presenters, and I thank the various presenters for sharing information and experience so that we can all learn from the existing good practices moving forward. So we see that this is an exceptional situation, and it is therefore, of course, about providing exceptional solutions. Encouragingly, we note that countries and educators have spared no effort to ensure continuity of education during this crisis. Countries have switched to virtual mode, meaning that distance learning using ICT is now an unavoidable solution, despite the existing real challenges as highlighted by the president. It is now a question of ensuring students continue with their education. It is also a question of training teachers, training educators in new ways of doing things during the current pandemic. And this is in line with AU Continental Agenda 2063, CISA, Strategic Objective 1, which speaks of revitalizing the teaching professional to ensure quality and relevance of all levels of education. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, you will agree with me that we are living in extraordinary times, which calls for unprecedented solutions to ensure education is not disrupted. Ideally, countries should leverage on ICT in ensuring continuation of education during school closure through distance learning. However, in Africa, some of our educators and students have limited capacities and access to these technologies, especially among marginalized communities in the continent. Nevertheless, COVID-19 crisis have shown us the need to expand ICT access to colleges and universities, and the need to strengthen ICT capacity among teachers, educators, and students to ensure that school closure has insignificant impact on training and learning. Once again, I wish to thank the UNESCO IGBA, the webinar organizers who have spared no efforts for the success of this webinar, and ultimately have allowed us to learn from each other and also to create learning progress. Indeed, AU is grateful to UNESCO IGBA for their support in teacher development issues in Africa, including co-chairing CISA cluster on teacher development. I will conclude by reaffirming the commitment of the African Union on the continuation of teacher development issues across all levels of education in our country. Thank you very much for your the closing speech sent by Dr. Hama. On behalf of all the organizers and all the participants, I would like to thank him very much. And on behalf of Director, I would like to thank you all for spending some of your time with us during this session of experience and information sharing about ICT use in distance education. So thank you so very much for your time. So this is the end of that session. We're sorry for the challenges related to internet.
Salih. Hi, Salih.
Yes.
Yes. Hi, this is Ujur. Yes, Ali, I just wanted to point out that since we'll be sharing the documents with people, if they can please type their emails in the chat bot so that we can collate it and share all of the relevant documents with them. Thank you.
Very good. Good suggestion. He's asking you to tag your emails in the chat board so that we can find your contacts and send the documents to you very easily and very quickly.
Are you?
Yes.
They can also give us from which country they are from so that we know who have been covered.
Okay, thank you. So the
Thank you.
Just
to add to Hungi's suggestion, so just give us your institution, your country, and your email so that we can collate all of that. Thank you very much.
So thank you. I think everybody heard you. And
where can we do that, please?
Thank you very much.
Please, where can we get that done?
You can do that on the chat section.
Chat board on your left.
Okay, thank you.
There's an icon called chat. You can click there.
Yeah,
and then
on chat. Yes, I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we done now?
Yes.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. A very informative webinar.
Thank you very much. And sorry for those challenges.
Well, technology, it's expected.
That's it, yes.
Thank you for participating.
Thank you very much for...
Yeah, congrats, Salu. That's a great one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
When is the next one, Salu?
The next one?
When is the next webinar?
In 15 days. We have
15 days?
One webinar next week, but it will be with Adea. We'll reach out to you to inform you.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll use your
Thank
contacts
you.
that are in the platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.